Hey guys, tonight we will hear a dramatic story called The Most Bizarre Sexual Practices of Ancient Egyptian Pharaohs. You will never imagine that this terrible thing could happen. In the glittering world of gold incense and eternal monuments behind the cold stare of the Sphinx and the painted gods of Egypt, lies a chilling truth. The bedroom secrets of the pharaohs were stranger and darker than anyone dares whisper aloud. You're about to journey through a royal court where sex wasn't just pleasure, but politics, magic power, and sometimes horror. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Post your location and the local time you're listening. I always love seeing where you're tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are Neferu, a humble scroll keeper newly assigned to the House of Life, a sacred archive hidden deep inside the Temple of Karnak. You're 23, and your father, a respected artisan, carved the stelae that now line the entrance of Pharaoh Amenhotep III's mortuary temple. But unlike your father, you work with ink, not chisel. Your job is to quietly record rituals and accounts, what people say, not what they build. Today, your master high scribe, Khamwaset, hands you a sealed linen bundle. You are to read this, but only here. It never leaves this chamber, he warns. His eyes don't blink. You untie the seal, and an ancient manuscript falls open in your lap, its title inked in red, The Hidden Union of the Gods and Pharaohs, Sexual Rites Forbidden to Speak Aloud. You blink. This isn't just royal gossip. These are sacred and secret acts, bizarre, ritualistic, terrifying. And as the first page cracks open like a tomb, so does your descent into Egypt's most private perversions. It begins with Pharaoh Djedkara Isesi, whose rule 200 years ago was both admired and feared. The priests called him Son of Ra and took that literally. Each year during the Feast of Renewal, he performed a ritual inside the Chamber of Divine Flesh, a hidden room beneath the Temple of Heliopolis. According to the scroll, the ritual involved the pharaoh lying with a priestess chosen to represent the goddess Hathor, naked, except for a mask of gold. But this wasn't lovemaking. It was domination, a sacred display where the pharaoh was expected to mimic the god's first sexual act violently to ensure the Nile would flood again. The more intense the ritual, the more fruitful the land. The priestess would be drugged with blue lotus and wine, her body painted in symbols of fertility. Every movement was dictated by old spells chanted from a hidden chamber by male scribes. And when it was done, she was never seen again. You pause reading. There's a smudge of blood on the papyrus, not ink blood. Who wrote this, and why would it be hidden in a sealed bundle inside a temple scroll vault? A shadow falls across your page. Khamwaset stands behind you, arms crossed. Keep reading. What you learn now is not for pleasure. It is for protection. You nod slowly. The second entry is stranger still. It recounts the rule of Queen Sobekneferu, the first woman to call herself pharaoh. She too performed sacred unions, but without a male consort. She chose her own brother to enact the lunar rite of Osiris and Isis. In the myth, Isis resurrects her dead husband Osiris and mates with him to conceive Horus. But the ritual required Sobekneferu to first simulate her brother's death through suffocation, only to revive him moments before, coupling inside a chamber filled with incense thick enough to make any witness collapse. You run your fingers down the ink. Notes in the margin read, "Too much spice." second brother died. Someone had tried this multiple times, successfully once. Kayamwaset clears his throat. Do you understand why this is kept secret? He says. Because to expose the divine with human eyes is to unravel the throne itself. You return to the scroll. The final part of the section details how Pharaoh Akhenaten, father of Tutankhamun, turned sex into a divine obsession. He claimed that the Aten, the sun disk god, could only bless a pharaoh who mated with himself. Alone in a high tower during the festival of the horizon, Akhenaten would enter trance states and pleasure himself under the blazing sun. His guards claimed the pharaoh would sometimes bleed from his eyes or speak in tongues. The scroll doesn't question whether it was true. It describes the sacred release as if it were part of a harvest calendar, something to be done with utmost precision. He would write about the experience afterward in reverse hieroglyphs meant only for the gods. Then something chilling, a note added years later in red ink reads, "This is why his city fell. The gods never asked for such things." You close the scroll, gently, fingers trembling. But Kayamwaset presses another bundle into your hands. That was only volume 1, he says softly. The true horror begins when pharaohs started to confuse themselves with gods, not just pretend, but believe. You stare at the torch-lit walls of the archive. What kind of truth have you just unearthed? These aren't just sex rituals. These are blood-soaked performances bound to superstition and power. You aren't ready, but you will read the next scroll. You must, because someone in the royal court is reviving these forgotten rites. And tonight, for the first time in 300 years, the stars align again over Karnak. And the Queen's priestess has just been chosen. You haven't slept. The papyrus scrolls echo in your mind like chants in an empty temple. The sun is only just rising over the sandstone spires of Karnak, painting the sacred complex in gold and shadow. But already the temple buzzes with quiet urgency. Something is about to happen. Something they've been preparing for and hiding. Kayamwaset summons you before the altar of Thoth, the god of knowledge. The statue looms above you, ibis head peering down, as if silently judging the weight of what you now carry. The high scribe speaks in a hushed tone, Neferu. The Queen's priestess is to undergo the ancestral binding tonight. We suspect she is being coerced into a ritual long forbidden. You ask, your voice low. What kind of binding? Kayamwaset's mouth tightens. One from the era of Pharaoh Menkauhor, the midnight sun. A rite that once required the mating of pharaoh and daughter. You feel your stomach twist, and so the second scroll is opened. Its cover is stained with resin and wax, preserved hidden and cursed. It begins not with a name, but with a warning. To read this is to touch the fire of Ra. Do not repeat the acts. Record only. Inside you discover the story of Pharaoh Menkauhor, who ruled during the 5th dynasty, an era of fading pyramids and growing paranoia. His advisors claimed the gods no longer heard the prayers of men. Crops were failing. Nile levels were too low. The answer, restore the sacred bloodline. Through incest. His daughter Neferet was 13, chosen as the Hemet Nesu, the wife of the god, not for love, but for blood purity. Each solstice inside the chamber of eternal seed Menkauhor would drink wine laced with powdered crocodile teeth for virility, and recite a spell meant to bind the family line to itself, unbroken like the scarab's circle. The act was not hidden. It was public ceremonial. witnessed by priests in silent stony rows. Neferet's body was wrapped in linen, but left open in the center, her face masked by turquoise to hide her mortality from Ra. She was never allowed to speak again after the first ritual. Her tongue was ritually numbed with frankincense ash. She gave birth to a child with fused limbs and 3 fingers. They called him the Divine Twin and burned his body the moment he cried. But the ritual continued year after year. You read faster now, unable to stop even as bile rises in your throat. A final note in the scroll reads, "May no Pharaoh return to this path. For the gods punished Menkauhor by taking his voice. He died with no tongue." You glance at Kaimwaset. Is the queen truly reviving this? He nods solemnly. Her advisor, Vizier Jari, has been studying forbidden rites. He claims the royal blood has been diluted, that this ritual will awaken the eye of Horus in the next heir. But the queen doesn't have a daughter, you whisper. Kayamwaset looks away. She has a niece, 14, named Becket. You feel your hands shake. This can't be allowed, but who are you to stop it? That night the torches are lit early in the southern courtyard. Women in sheer linen robes chant softly while painting Bequet's skin with ochre and sacred oils. You watch from a hidden alcove, the scroll pressed to your chest. She is too young, too frightened, and yet she does not speak. Like Neferet, her tongue is already stained dark. The queen enters tall, elegant, wearing a leopard skin cape once reserved for priests. But it's what she carries that chills your bones, the Osirian blade, an ancient dagger used in fertility rites to symbolically sever mortality. In the myth, it was used by Isis to slice Osiris into pieces. In practice, it draws a single line of blood across the thigh to summon divine heat. Jari, the vizier, chants verses from the Book of Breathing. You recognize them from your studies, except these have been corrupted, combined with fragments from the Book of Caverns and the erotic hymns of Hathor. This is no sanctioned ritual. It's a patchwork of dark spells stitched together like a mummy's shroud. Kamwaset grips your shoulder suddenly. Tonight is the last night to stop this. We must steal the scroll of eclipse. You blink. What is that, a ritual key? It grants legitimacy to the rite. Without it, the gods cannot witness the act. The scroll is kept in the House of Stars, a forbidden wing of the library, sealed to all but the queen's inner circle. Getting in means risking death. But if the ritual completes, Becket will suffer a fate older than memory. You follow Kayamwaset down the winding corridors of the temple, past murals of falcons and serpents, until you reach a wall marked only by a single eye, the eye of Wedjat, Horus's symbol of seeing through illusion. Kayamwaset presses his hand to the wall and speaks a phrase you don't understand. A passage opens. Inside, a single scroll lies on an altar flanked by cobras carved in stone. The scroll of eclipse. You rush forward and open it. The first line reads, "Let the child be no longer child. Let the flesh know itself and fold inward." Horrified, you roll it back up and hide it under your robe. Footsteps. Jari. He's here. "Thieves," he says calmly. "You are trespassing in the queen's shadow." But Kamwaset doesn't flinch. So are you. She does not know you've twisted the rite. Dejari steps forward. Knowledge is power, and power is rebirth. You run, The temple echoes with alarm bells. Guards shout. You barely make it through a side tunnel behind the falcon statue, the scroll still under your robe. You don't sleep that night. You hide in the tomb of a forgotten priest. And in the silence, with only your breath and the hiss of wind through stone, you finally understand something terrifying. The rituals weren't meant to please gods. They were meant to create monsters. Dust coats your tongue. The tomb walls sweat with ancient damp. Outside, Karnak stirs restlessly, the way a serpent twitches just before striking. You're crouched behind a broken sarcophagus, the stolen scroll of Eclipse pressed to your chest. Somewhere above, Queen Tenut's sacred ritual approaches, and Becket, her niece, lies painted in blood and oil, waiting to be bound to an ancient curse she doesn't understand. You hear footsteps, whispered voices, then silence. It's Kayamwaset. He slips through the hidden crevice and seals it behind him. His robe is torn, his left eye swollen, but he smiles when he sees you. You still have it. You nod. The scroll of Eclipse is safe. Good. We only have until midnight. Once the constellation of Sa forms above the temple, Jari will begin the final incantation. If that scroll is not present, the gods will turn their gaze, and the rite will collapse, but collapse into what you ask. He looks away. The old stories say, madness, fire, the birth of a child that is not human. You stare at him. Jajari knows this and still continues. Tower is blind when it wears the mask of the divine, he replies. And that's when Kayamwaset gives you the next scroll. Volume 3, bound in blue linen. It is older than the rest. A brittle thing that smells of salt and honey. The title is scratched into the leather with a copper pin. The great seed of the sky pharaohs. It details the reign of Pharaoh Unas, the last king of the 5th dynasty. Unlike Menkauhor, Unas claimed he would ascend to the heavens, not just in death, but in flesh. His priests built a staircase within the pyramid of Saqqara, each step inscribed with verses of sexual transformation. The scroll describes how Unas declared that the gods had no gender, and so neither would he. On alternating days, he dressed as Osiris or Isis, performing sacred acts upon himself, in ritual isolation. He consumed potions made from bull semen, pomegranate syrup, and crushed turquoise to induce divine duality. One chilling passage reads, "He opened himself with the jade hook, and the moon wept for 7 days. No one dared stop him. He emerged one night, claiming he had borne the seed of Ra. He called it a child, but no one ever saw it. Only the screams from the chamber at night, and the disappearance of 7 priests, one by one." The scroll ends with a frantic, handwritten line. Unas fed it with dreams, and in return, it fed on time. You shut the scroll. Kayamwaset speaks quietly. Jari has studied Unas's rites. He believes the coming eclipse is a chance to harvest divine seed again, but instead of bearing it himself, he will offer Becket. A cold realization seizes you. She's not just a vessel, you say. She's the bait. Yes, he nods. Jari wants to birth a god, or something worse. And that's when you realize you're not just a scribe anymore. You've become the last barrier between a child and a ritual born from madness. You ask, can we destroy the scroll? No, Kayamwaset says. It must be returned to the House of Life. If it is not archived with full ritual, its destruction will curse the city for generations. We must return it in secrecy before the 3rd hour of night. Time is running short. Together you make your way through the undercrofts of Karnak. The stone corridors twist like intestines beneath the temple. In the darkness, statues of Anubis seem to watch you. You hear the rustle of robes and the distant low hum of chants. Already the priests are gathering above. In the house of life, the archivists have fled. Only one remains, an old woman named Ipi. She once taught you how to bind scrolls with date palm twine. Now she trembles at the sight of the scroll of eclipse. You cannot return it, she whispers, not without the seal of mouths closed. Kayamwaset pales, but that seal was buried with the Prince of Scorpions 300 years ago. No, Ipi says, her eyes gleaming. It was never buried. It was hidden. She draws out a small casket from behind a clay statue. Inside, wrapped in linen, is a small object, black stone carved with 2 lips stitched shut. The seal. You press the scroll to the seal, and it sizzles faintly like incense hitting coal. Now Kayamwaset says, "Hide it." Together you return the scroll to its resting place deep in a slit in the library wall, hidden behind false glyphs. You speak the incantation. Ipi teaches you what is known must be forgotten. What is sealed must not be sung. The wall closes. For a moment the air feels still, as if the gods exhaled. But then, a tremor. The ground beneath Karnak shudders. You hear screaming from the upper levels, and chanting louder now, more desperate, more wrong. Kayamwaset turns to you. He's begun anyway. Without the scroll, he's going to do it blind. Can he, you ask? Yes, he says, but it won't be the gods who answer. It'll be something else. You race with him through the torchlit halls. Outside, the moon begins to turn dark. The eclipse is starting. The priests stand in a wide circle around Beckett, who lies motionless, her body draped in gold beads, and her lips sewn shut with scarlet thread. And Jari, he holds a jar. Inside, something writhes. It is the seed of Ra, he proclaims. Returned to flesh. The wind howls. The ground splits. And from the heavens, a light shines down, not warm, not golden, but green, sickly, alien. And Beckett opens her eyes, completely black. The temple erupts into chaos. Priests fall to their knees, some weeping, others vomiting as the green light pulses like a heartbeat over the courtyard. Statues crack. Walls bleed salt. The sky seems torn open not by the eclipse alone, but by something pushing through it. Something ancient. Something forgotten. And Beckett, she stands. Her body doesn't move naturally anymore. It glides weightless toward the altar of Hathor. Her eyes, 2 pools of black glass, reflect no firelight, no moonlight. Just depth, like a well with no bottom. And Jari is laughing, unblinking. His hands raised, high palms up as if to embrace whatever horror he's just summoned. She is the gateway, he bellows, the womb of Ra. The forgotten twin. All gods must pass through her. You watch in horror as the jar he carried, once sealed, now shattered, seeps something pale onto the stone floor. It writhes like roots. No one knows what to do. Even the guards have dropped their weapons. Beside you, Kayamwaset clutches a stone amulet and begins to chant, not to call down gods, but to block them. You join him, reciting every protection spell you remember from your years in training. The ground swells. A blast of heat rises like steam from the Nile, and then Beckett speaks. But her voice isn't hers. It's layered male-female beast wind. I was fed in darkness. I remember your temples. Your mouths spoke me before your minds were born. You realize with icy dread that this is not a god, not even a demon. This is a memory living inside flesh, a forbidden echo given form, and Jari. He steps forward as though to embrace Beckett, but she touches his face gently, almost lovingly, and in that moment his body shatters inward, like a pot crushed from the inside out. His robes collapse to the floor, and nothing remains of him but a thin smear of blood and the faint scent of incense and rot. Silence. The priests break and flee screaming. One throws himself into the sacred lake. Another claws his eyes out before the temple wall. You and Kayamwaset stand alone now facing the child gate of something unholy, half-born in gold and prophecy. But something in Beckett flickers. Her lips tremble. She reaches toward you, and you feel it. She's still inside, trapped, fighting. Kayamwaset shouts, "The chain of Akasha." The verses from Scroll. Use them. You blink. I haven't read Scroll 4. But he presses it into your hands, shouting, "Read it now." It's heavier than the others, bound in crocodile skin. As you crack it open, a gust of wind knocks over a brazier. The temple begins to burn. Inside the scroll doesn't begin with a spell. It begins with a story. A boy named Kaimeni, the bastard son of Pharaoh Khufu, yes, that Khufu, the builder of the Great Pyramid. Kaimeni was raised in secret, trained by desert mystics. But his father discovered him and declared that the boy would serve as the first sacrifice in the rebirth rites. Khufu believed that if he buried his own son alive within the pyramid, the gods would grant him eternal rebirth each morning. The ritual was begun. Kaimeni was sealed inside. But he did not die. The scroll says he was taken, his body used as a vessel for divine memory. He returned 5 years later, walking barefoot into the capital, eyes glowing black, just like Beckett. Kaimeni's scream burned half of Memphis to the ground. You flip the scroll faster. There. A ritual of reversal. The binding of memory to bone. It reads, "Speak the name of the body, not the soul. Pour clean milk, burn salt and lotus. Cut the binding thread, and whisper, you are not mine. Return to earth, return to sleep." You nod at Kayamwaset. We need salt, milk, lotus, and her name. He's already working. From his robe he draws a pouch of ground salt, a vial of lotus extract. You snatch a bowl of consecrated milk from the foot of the altar. Then you look at Beckett, the child, the gate. You whisper her name, Beckett. Her head snaps toward you. Her mouth stretches open unnaturally wide. But you don't stop. Beckett, you say again louder. You are not mine. Return to earth. Return to sleep. She shudders. The lights flicker. You pour the milk over her feet. She screams not in pain, but like something being yanked back through time. You burn the salt. Splash the lotus on her chest. Cut the red thread at her lips with Kayamwaset's blade. She collapses. The green light disappears. The eclipse ends. And all is dark. Silence again. Smoke rises in gentle curls. The temple is ruined. Jari is dead. Most of the priests have fled. Only you, Kayamwaset, and the unconscious Becket remain in the broken courtyard of the gods. You kneel beside her. Her eyes are closed. Her breath is shallow but normal. The blackness is gone. Kayamwaset places a hand on your shoulder. She'll live, he says, but she'll dream of that thing forever. You ask, was it a god? He shakes his head. No. Worse. It was a ritual born of human desperation, copied too many times, corrupted. It grew teeth in the dark. Not a god. A hunger. You look at the remains of Jari's jar. Empty. But something scratches faintly inside the stone floor. It's not over. The following day, Karnak is unnervingly quiet. The sky is clean now, scrubbed of green light and celestial tremors. The eclipse has passed. Yet no birds sing. No merchants cry out in the streets. Even the sacred cats have vanished. You remain hidden in the deepest library chamber with Kayamwaset and Becket, who sleeps under a linen canopy beside you. Her breathing has steadied, but the bruising around her lips remains. The red thread cut from her mouth still stains your fingers. You haven't washed. You're afraid to forget the feeling. Afraid that if you clean yourself, the memory will fade, and the evil with it return unnoticed. Kayamwaset is writing furiously, documenting everything. He pauses only to ask you to recite again in detail what you saw when Becket stood under the light. You comply, though, each time you speak it. It feels more like a fever dream than a memory. She was taller, you say, or looked taller, and the way she moved, not human. The voice, it sounded like stone cracking underwater. He nods solemnly. This matches the fifth voice described in Scroll 7, the same that appeared during the Black Wedding of Pharaoh Nitocris. You blink Nitocris, the queen who drowned her enemies in a banquet chamber. Yes, he says, pulling another scroll from the shelf, one you hadn't seen before. But that was the official tale. The truth was far stranger. He hands you the scroll. It's thinner than the others, but written in dense, spidery hieratic. The ink is red, almost fresh, despite being centuries old. You begin reading. The Red Conception of Nitocris. It tells the tale of a pharaoh queen who ruled after the murder of her brother. A woman of incredible intellect and rage. Publicly, she avenged him by inviting his killers to a banquet and flooding the chamber, drowning them all. But in secret, she believed revenge alone would not protect Egypt. She sought immortality not for herself, but for the womb of vengeance. In the deepest vault beneath the temple of Bastet, Nitocris performed an ancient rite. A sexual union not with man or God, but with wrath itself. She summoned an essence said to be born of every unsatisfied death, every murdered soul denied justice. She called it the Red One. The rite involved no partner. She lay upon a slab of carnelian naked, except for a crown of cow's hair dipped in myrrh, and cut her own flesh at 7 points each, representing a betrayal she had endured. Blood pooled into a bowl made from the skull of a traitor. Then she drank it, saying, "Let my blood know hate. Let my womb carry thunder." 9 months later she bore a child, but it never cried, never aged. It simply watched. The scroll claims that the child's gaze drove 6 priests mad and caused all temple mirrors to crack. When it disappeared at age 5, Nitocris burned her own palace to the ground. Her last words were carved into the sandstone in reversed glyphs, "We are doors." But not all doors should be opened. You drop the scroll. Kayem whispers. That same phrase appeared beneath Becket's bedchamber. I found it etched behind the statue of Ma'at. A chill slips down your spine. You glance at Becket again. Her eyelids twitch in sleep. Her fingers curl, then relax. You don't know if the thing that possessed her is truly gone, or merely sleeping. Camwaset returns to the scrolls. We need to trace the line backward. Find where this began. You ask which pharaoh started all this. He answers without looking up. Pharaoh Den. You blink. Den, that's early. First dynasty. The very first to formalize divine kingship, Camwaset says. Before him, pharaohs were mortal. After him, they were gods. He draws out another scroll older than any you've seen. It's not written on papyrus, but tanned human skin. You hesitate. He says, this is the right of the sun seed. It is not a myth. It is a contract. You begin to read, swallowing bile. It recounts how Den, hungry for eternal rule, climbed the obelisk of creation at Abydos and offered his seed to the sky. Not metaphorically, he ejaculated onto the solar altar, believing that by spilling his essence at the zenith of the sun, he would impregnate the heavens themselves. The myth said that Ra's own fire would return through the bloodline. 9 months later, one of his royal concubines claimed to bear a child born with flame in his eyes. The boy was hidden. The scroll never names him, but it refers to him only as the beginning of the end. The scroll also says this child would die, but not before his image passed into stone and his seed into shadow. You stop reading. The statues, you say. Camwaset nods. Yes. Not all statues are just likenesses. Some are vessels. A statue of a pharaoh with hollow eyes. A statue that watches. A statue that remembers. And you realize something terrible. The rituals never ended. They were just buried, etched into walls, hidden in scrolls, whispered in tombs, waiting for men like Jari to bring them back. Suddenly Becket wakes. She sits upright, her eyes normal, but wide with fear. She whispers only one thing. It's still here. To be continued. You stare at Becket, the girl who just hours ago became the vessel of an ancient hunger, now sitting upright, trembling, clutching her linen blanket with knuckles pale as bone. It's still here, she says again, her voice hoarse. You crouch beside her gently, brushing a wet strand of hair from her brow. What's still here, Becket? She doesn't answer right away, but then her hand slowly lifts and points not toward the door, not toward the temple, but toward the floor. Camwaset stiffens. The vaults, he whispers. The old chambers beneath the temple. You've only heard rumors of the deep galleries buried beneath even the tombs of the priests, deeper than the well shafts that run dry every summer, supposedly filled with rites deemed too dangerous even for erasure. You've never been, you ask. Camwaset shakes his head. No scribe has. But if the presence hasn't left Becket, it may be drawn to its origin point. We must go there. We must seal whatever door was opened. He draws out a thick roll of maps, temple schematics layered like tree rings. At the center, a chamber marked only with a black circle, its name smeared away. The route will take you beneath the sanctuary of the horizon, past a collapsed passage known to only the oldest archivists. Epi appears suddenly, as if summoned, carrying a satchel of warding relics, Ankh amulets, scarabs, a flask of goat's milk, and an old cat skull painted with protective glyphs. "I saw what happened," she murmurs. "Take these. You'll need more than ink and spells where you're going." Beckett insists on joining you. Kayamwaset hesitates, but she says, "It wants me close. That means I should see where it lives." And you realize she isn't just a victim. She's becoming something more. A witness to the oldest sin. You begin your descent with torches lit and scrolls bound tightly beneath your robes. The air grows cooler. Dust thickens. You step over broken altars, old prayer bowls, and feathers from vultures long dead. The walls begin to change, no longer polished stone, but raw cavern, as if the earth itself recoiled from what was buried here. Then you reach it. The door, 7 hands wide, carved of black basalt, not adorned with gods, but with faces, mouths sewn shut, eyes peeled wide, ears full of sand. A warning. You press your ear to the stone. Silence. Then a heartbeat. Slow, wet, enormous. Kayamwaset whispers, "It's not just memory. It's gestating." You and Beckett look to him in horror. He continues, the rituals, the rites. They weren't summoning. They were feeding. And now, it's ready. You pull the final scroll, the scroll of cessation, a last resort incantation meant to rupture magical energy bound to flesh and echo. It requires 3 elements, the true name of the entity, a sacrifice of memory, and an eye. The true name, Kayamwaset believes he's found it. Hidden deep within the scroll about Kaimini, the bastard son of Khufu, is a phrase repeated over and over in ink so faint it only appears under moonlight. Ur-Henusa, he who smiles beneath. The second requirement, a sacrifice of memory, falls to you. You're the newest to the house of life, the least essential. And so you agree. "What does it mean?" Beckett asks. Kayamwaset looks grave. He must offer up a memory so precious it anchors his soul. Once gone, it can never return. You think for a moment, and then whisper my mother's voice. You remember it now, how she sang to you while weaving palm leaves, how she called you her starlight when you were sick with fever, how she smiled when you first wrote your name in ink. But then, you let it go. The ritual begins. Kayamwaset chants the name. Beckett draws a circle of salt and sets the cat's skull at the center. You take a shard of obsidian and press it gently to your eye. You don't scream as the pain shoots through your skull. You don't cry as the orb falls into the milk bowl. But you feel a rush of cold and emptiness where her voice used to live. And then the basalt door begins to open. Not outward, inward. Stone doesn't slide, it dissolves like dust slipping through water. And inside a chamber. Vast, circular, lit from nowhere. And at its center a statue. But not of a god, not a pharaoh. It is a figure of flesh. Unmoving, kneeling, mouth stitched, arms outstretched. You recognize it. It's Beckett. And yet, She's beside you. Two of her, one real, one made. You turn to Kamwaset in horror. He says the rituals didn't just summon the seed. They created a twin, a memory-born double. She is the husk for what the priests believed would house eternity. Suddenly, the false Beckett opens her eyes. Black. Wider than any child's should be. And she begins to rise. The chamber begins to shake. Beckett grips your hand. We have to end it, she whispers. You nod. Kayamwaset hands her the eye, the one you gave, the one that once saw your mother. She steps into the circle, speaks the true name, Urhenusa. The air explodes in windless force. The stitched mouths on the walls open and scream. You collapse to your knees, deafened. Kayamwaset is bleeding from his nose, and the false Beckett begins to crack her skin, splitting like papyrus in fire. From inside her chest, something writhes, still unborn, still trying to be born. Beckett lifts the eye high above her head, and as she brings it down, the final line of the spell is spoken. No flesh, no breath, no time. Sleep now, sleep now, sleep now. There's a blinding flash, and then silence, darkness, dust, and nothing more. You wake some time later coughing. Kayamwaset groans beside you. The door is whole again, the chamber sealed, and Beckett. You stumble through the dust-choked tunnels of the deep galleries, half blind, half deaf. The silence isn't peace, it's the silence after an explosion, a silence filled with pressure, like the gods themselves are holding their breath. Kayamwaset limps behind you, one hand pressed against his ribs. You glance back constantly, hoping Beckett is still following, but she isn't. She never emerged. The moment the ritual ended, when her double shattered like pottery, and the eye's spell sealed the gateway, Beckett vanished, as if consumed by the magic itself. You don't know if she's dead, or elsewhere, or worse, divided. The weight of it crushes your chest, but you press on. There's no time to mourn. Not yet. The House of Life must know. The scrolls must be rewritten, or locked away forever, because what you've witnessed cannot be allowed to happen again. You and Kayamwaset finally reach the upper levels of Karnak, just as the sun begins to rise. The temple is different now, quieter, as if Egypt itself knows something unspeakable has happened. The queen is gone, her chambers abandoned, the guards missing. No one can find the vizier's body, though blood still stains the courtyard. Only a single gold ring remains, Jari's signet cracked down the middle left on the altar, where Beckett once lay. Kayamwaset hands it to you. A reminder, he says, of what ambition becomes when it tries to devour the divine. You nod. And that's when Epi appears again, her face ashen. I found something, she says, holding out a scroll with trembling fingers. It's not one you recognize. The seal is strange, two serpents coiled around a womb-shaped symbol, not an ankh. You open it cautiously. Inside is a text known only by legend, the tomb of the shard god. It is said that long before Egypt's first dynasty, before Narmer united the two lands, there was a cult that believed God was not one being, but many fragments. Each pharaoh, each high priest, each ritual was meant not to summon gods, but to reconstruct them piece by piece. Sex was their hammer, sacrifice was their chisel, and children. children were the clay. You read the passages in horror. One account details a rite called the First Throat. A queen lay beneath a stone canopy, while three masked priests performed symbolic seedings with a golden serpent, its tongue tipped with oryx bone. The text describes the event in nauseating detail, how the queen's blood was collected in alabaster jars and mixed with sand to sculpt a new god face. But the sculptures always melted, as if the earth rejected their attempt. Another passage, the three moans of Tefnut. A child priestess was trained to chant during simulated acts, echoing the divine syllables of Tefnut's creation moan. The louder her voice, the more rainfall was expected. But on the final night, her tongue was cut out so the gods would not hear human breath ever again. These weren't isolated events. These were patterns. Practiced, recorded, repeated. An entire underground theology of sexual transmutation performed not for fertility or devotion, but to rebuild the divine genome. You're dizzy. The implications are staggering. They were trying to become gods, you whisper, not serve them. Kayamwaset nods grimly. Not worship, but graft. To fuse flesh and memory and spirit until man and God were no longer separate. You understand now why the House of Life locked these scrolls away, why the deepest rituals were never allowed outside ink and silence. But then you reach the final line of the scroll. It's not a record. It's a warning. When the final shard is found, the god will not be grateful. It will be hungry. You close the scroll, your fingers shaking, and then Ipi speaks again. There's more. She hands you a carved box. Inside is a mask, gold, smooth, featureless. It was in the queen's chamber, she says. No eyes, no mouth, no nose, no human expression at all. You remember the rituals, the mask of Hathor, the masks of Ra. But this is different. This isn't a symbol. This is a face not yet written. Kayamwaset leans in. It's a placeholder for a god that has no face yet, because it hasn't been born. You both fall silent. Then Ipi says what you've been afraid to ask. What if Beckett was not just the vessel? You glance up. What if she was the shard, one of many? What if that thing we sealed is still missing pieces, and suddenly the world feels much larger and more dangerous than it did before? That night you sit alone in the archive, writing everything you remember. Kayamwaset sleeps in the next room exhausted. Ipi tends the flame. You begin a new scroll, not for worship, not for ritual, but for warning. You title it, What the Pharaohs Tried to Hide, and as your pen glides across the parchment, you swear you hear a child's laughter in the dark. It's not Beckett's. It's older, hungrier, and getting closer. 3 days pass. Karnak reawakens slowly like an injured lion licking its wounds. The sun shines again, the priests resume their chants, and the queen's disappearance is explained away with carefully crafted lies. She has gone on pilgrimage, they say, to commune with the gods at Siwa. Few question it. Fear has a way of muting curiosity. But you know the truth. So does Kayamwaset and Ipi. And each night, the three of you gather in the locked chamber beneath the House of Life, there by the flickering light of a single oil lamp. You copy the scrolls pieced together, histories long buried, and map the connections between rituals, pharaohs, and the thing now sleeping beneath the temple, or waiting. Becket's absence is a wound. You find yourself reaching for her voice in dreams, waking with the feeling that she is nearby watching. not with malice, with urgency, like she's trapped behind a wall only you can hear through. On the fourth night, Kayamwaset opens a box wrapped in lapis-colored linen. Inside lies the final scroll from his private archive, one he had never dared to read. It is labeled simply, "The Consummation of Ra." You lean in heart pounding. The parchment is fragile, written in an ancient dialect, even older than Middle Egyptian. Kayamwaset translates aloud, his voice steady. In the time before time, Ra found himself alone. He sought to know the source of his own light. So he bent inward. And from his own body he summoned a second self, Kara, the seed of flame. The scroll then details a ritual meant to recreate Ra's first act of self-union. A pharaoh was to be ritually divided, his masculine and feminine halves separated through fasting, hallucinogenic honey, and bloodletting, then reunited in a mirror chamber beneath the earth. The scroll doesn't say what happened when this was attempted in reality, but it includes a name. Pharaoh Neferkara Jer. You feel your pulse quicken. Jer III, pharaoh of the first dynasty. A ruler historians often call enigmatic. His tomb was sealed prematurely. His successor declared him unfit to pass into the afterlife and struck his name from monuments. But here you discover why. He attempted the mirror rite, and something went wrong. The scroll includes diagrams. A room shaped like an ankh mirrors on every wall, including floor and ceiling. At its center, a platform carved with twin symbols, the Eye of Horus, and a single downward-pointing triangle. A womb, a mouth, a warning. Djer lay on this altar while priests dressed in opposing genders performed chants around him. And at the rite's peak, he was to look upon his divided self and speak his true name. But something else spoke back. The scroll reads, "He found not Kara, but Ka-Namek, the shade between reflections, the thing that crawls behind the eye." The rite failed, and Jer, he did not die. He vanished. But each year afterward, on the anniversary of the rite, a child would disappear from the temple. Always aged 7. Always found days later, mouth sewn shut, body twisted backward, eyes burned white. You step away from the scroll, stomach turning. I've seen that symbol before, you whisper. The triangle beneath the eye. Kayamwaset turns to you sharply. Where you remember. The queen's bedroom, carved beneath her bed, and behind the statue of Isis in Becket's chamber. He grabs his staff. We're going back. You return to the queen's chambers under cover of darkness. The room is dusty, untouched. Her perfumes still linger, jasmine and cedar. The scent of power. You move to the bed and lift the linens. There it is, carved deep into the wood. The downward triangle beneath the eye. Kayamwaset mutters. She wasn't just performing rituals. She was continuing Jer's work. You feel a chill ripple down your spine. And Becket, you ask. He doesn't answer. You go to Becket's room next. There behind the statue of Isis, you find not only the same symbol, but a hidden drawer. Inside a mirror, hand-sized, silvered, cold, but wrong. The reflection isn't quite yours. It smiles when you don't, moves when you don't. You drop it instantly, and it cracks, splitting down the center like a jagged wound. Epi gasps. It's still active. Kayamwaset stares at the shards. That's not a mirror. It's a gate. You gather the pieces carefully, wrapping them in black linen. Then, as you prepare to leave, you notice something else etched into the drawer's base. I go to finish what Jer began. It's written in Becket's hand. You freeze. Ipy backs away. She didn't vanish. She descended. Kayamwaset finishes the thought. She's continuing the mirror rite. And suddenly you understand. This hasn't ended. It's beginning again. Not by accident, but by design. The Queen and Jari weren't the first. They were the latest link in a chain stretching back thousands of years, each link a pharaoh, a priest, a girl like Becket. Each link whispering the same name across generations. Kanemek. The thing behind the mirror. And now Becket is somewhere beneath Karnak, alone. Finishing a ritual no one has completed. Yet. Kayamwaset grips your shoulder. We must descend again, this time to the mirror chamber itself. You nod. Because the door was opened once. And if Becket speaks the name, it won't just be her reflection that answers. You descend again. Back through the temple's underbelly, past vaults of silence and corridors of forgotten gods deeper than before. The old path had led you to the sealed basalt door, the site of Becket's near possession. But the mirror chamber lies elsewhere, buried beneath the original sanctuary, far older than Karnak itself. Kayamwaset carries a brass lantern, its light tinted green by age. Ipi clutches a bundle of protective amulets in one hand and salt in the other. You carry the cracked mirror Becket left behind, wrapped tightly, humming faintly even through the cloth. Your steps echo through stone shaped not by craftsmen, but by something stranger. These walls curve in unnatural ways. Corners don't meet angles, feel wrong. You can't tell if you're walking downward or sideways. Finally, you reach a threshold. The air shifts. The hallway opens into a cavernous chamber, smooth as bone, round as an eye. You're standing inside the mirror room. And in the center, Becket. Standing barefoot on a black stone dais, arms outstretched. Before her, a full-length mirror polished to a supernatural gleam. It's not silver. It's darker than obsidian. It swallows light. Her reflection doesn't match her movements. She lifts one hand. The reflection lifts the other. She tilts her head. The reflection doesn't move. You freeze. Kayamwaset hisses. She hasn't spoken the name yet. The rite is incomplete. But it's close. Too close. Ipi begins to chant protective verses under her breath. You step forward, heart hammering. Becket, you whisper. She doesn't turn. You move closer. The floor is carved in spiraling glyphs, prayers, warnings, invocations. They all spiral inward toward a single sigil beneath her feet, Kanemek, the echo that binds. You remember the scroll, the ritual of Jer, the children who vanished, the faces sewn shut. You call again, Becket. This time she responds. She turns her head slowly toward you, and her eyes are wet with tears. I can see it, she whispers. The thing on the other side. You approach cautiously. You don't have to finish this. Come with us. The rite can end. She shakes her head. It already started. It was in me before I was born. I felt it in my bones when the Queen held me. She whispered its name in my dreams. Kayamwaset joins you. You've resisted it once. You can do it again. But Beckett only steps closer to the mirror. She whispers, "This is not about worship. This is about becoming." You realize with a sick twist in your stomach that she wants to understand it now. The same hunger that infected Jari and Nitocris and Den has touched her. She lifts the cracked mirror fragment, the one you brought, and presses it against the larger mirror. The moment they touch, the chamber groans. Reflections ripple. The surface of the mirror shudders like disturbed water. The entire room dims not with shadow, but with void. Light doesn't disappear, it's devoured. And then, the reflection moves, not like her, not opposite her. It steps out. You scream. Kayamwaset draws a dagger and chants the severing spell. Ipi throws salt at the mirror, and it sizzles with smoke, but the figure keeps forming. It's Beckett. And it's not. She's taller, pallid, eyes black, skin veined with gold, lips sewn shut with red thread. She opens her mouth, not the sewn one, but a second mouth in her chest, and from it she speaks in Beckett's voice. "I am what they made me. I am the memory they bled." Kayamwaset shouts, "It's not her. It's a mirror-born, a Ka fragment given form." You grab the lantern and hurl it. Flames explode across the stone but pass right through the reflection. It walks unburned. Ipi screams a name, one not written in any scroll. A secret word passed down orally, never recorded, Iknetka, the shard's reversal. For a moment, the thing flickers. But Beckett, the real Beckett, grabs your hand and whispers, "I have to do this." There's one more part, and she steps into the mirror, not toward it, into it, and vanishes. You rush forward, but the mirror is solid again. Only your reflection stares back wide-eyed, terrified, alone. The false Beckett remains silent, watching. Then cracks begin to form along its skin. It's decaying. Beckett's choice must have trapped it. She must have entered the reflection from place of the Ka, inverting the right. But that means she's locked in, you whisper. Kayamwaset's face is grim. She sacrificed herself to bind it, just like Kaimini, just like the first tongue. The false Beckett crumbles into dust, leaving only a whisper of incense and a single red thread. And then, the mirror goes black. No more light, no more reflection, just silence. You fall to your knees. You've won. But the cost, you don't remember the climb out of the mirror chamber. Kayamwaset tells you later that you walked in silence, dragging your fingers along the walls like someone half asleep. Ipi says you didn't blink once. Neither of them speaks of the look in your eyes. There's no need to, because you lost Beckett, and the mirror is closed. 3 days pass, then 5. Karnak moves on. Rituals resume, incense is burned, hymns are sung. The queen is officially declared dead at sea. Dejari's name is never spoken again. The people accept these truths the way they always have, grateful for simple lies over complex horrors. But you're different now. You don't sleep. You sit each night beside the cracked mirror fragment waiting for it to whisper. It never does. Until the 7th night. That's when you see the first sign. The oil lamp in your chamber flickers violently, though there's no wind. The ink in your inkwell curdles, and when you lift your stylus, the tip bends slightly as if resisting. You dip it anyway. You try to write Becket's name, but your hand won't move. Instead, it writes a symbol, a downward triangle beneath a single open eye. The mark of Kanemek. You drop the pen. What is happening? You whisper aloud. The mirror doesn't answer, but something else does. A sound. So soft, it's barely real. It's Becket's voice. Neferu. You spin around, heart leaping, but the chamber is empty, and yet the voice continues, like breath on your spine. I'm still here, in the place without reflections. You grab the mirror fragment, hold it up, and in the faint gleam of oil light you see her face. Becket, just for a second. Tired, pale, but smiling, and then gone. The next morning you go to Kamwaset. You tell him everything. His hands tremble. If her consciousness survived inside the mirror realm, it means the mirror rite wasn't completed. It was redirected. You stare at him. What does that mean? He draws a scroll, one you haven't seen before. It's not ancient, he wrote it himself. At the top, he's titled it Fragmentation of Ka in Dual Phase Rites. You scan the page. A theory. If a human enters the mirror in place of their Ka, the spirit splits. One part binds the entity, the other drifts. She's not lost, you whisper. She's not whole either, he says. But there might be a way to call her back. And that's when he shows you something even more dangerous. A scroll locked in copper bands sealed with red wax and snake hair. It's labeled the Heliacal Conjunction, a ritual of reunification. You stare. This is forbidden. Not just forbidden, burned from every archive centuries ago. This was never meant to be read, you say. Kamwaset nods. It's older than the first dynasty. Maybe older than writing itself. Passed orally by priestesses of Neith. Used once, then hidden. And you have it. He looks tired. I stole it. Years ago, I prayed I'd never need it. You open the scroll. The text is more symbol than language, swirls, jagged lines, echoing spirals. But there's a clear set of instructions. To reunite body and spirit across the veil of echo, one must find the vessel unfilled, speak the name bound in silence, and offer the price of clarity. You ask, what's the vessel? Epi steps forward. I believe it's the mirror itself, but not cracked, not scattered, whole. There's one still intact, beneath the temple of Dendera. You know the temple, a sanctuary of Hathor, the goddess of music, beauty, and sleep. But more importantly, mirrors. Hathor's priests were the last mirror makers of Egypt. Her inner sanctum holds a polished disc said to show the soul's shadow. You must go there, but the journey is long and the danger great. Kamwaset says, if we attempt this rite and fail, the mirror might not return. Becket, it might return something else, something left behind, something hungry. You don't hesitate. I'll go. The next day, you travel by bark along the Nile. The waters are unusually still. Even the crocodiles seem to stay hidden beneath the surface, as if wary of something moving through the current above. As Karnak fades behind you, you look at your reflection in the water. For a moment your eyes don't match. One is yours, the other is hers. And it blinks. You drop your gaze, hold the mirror fragment tighter, and whisper, "Hold on, Beckett. I'm coming." That night you dock near the temple. The priests of Dendera are cautious but curious. They remember Kayamwaset. They grant you entrance after midnight. And there at the heart of the sanctuary, beneath a canopy painted with stars and Hathor's cow horn crown, you see it, the mirror of whispers, black as oil, smooth as calm water, cold as death. Your reflection doesn't appear in it, only Beckett's. And this time she speaks clearly. "Neferu, it's hungry. And I'm not alone." You stand frozen before the mirror of whispers. Becket's face is etched into the black surface, not as a reflection, but as a memory, alive and watching. Her eyes follow yours. Her lips move. But no sound escapes now. Not from the mirror. Not from your mouth. The room itself seems to hold its breath. Then faintly, like sound passed through water, her voice returns. "Neferu, I'm not the only one trapped here." You feel cold bloom through your chest. Kamwaset steps beside you, eyes narrowed at the mirror. Ipi, silent as always, begins placing protective amulets in a circle around the platform. The priests of Dendera have retreated, disturbed by the mirror's reaction. Only the three of you remain in the sanctuary. Kamwaset speaks in a low tone. "We begin the heliacal conjunction now. The veil is thinner on this night. The star Sopdet has risen. The gods are watching. You kneel. The mirror is mounted on a bronze frame tilted backward at the same angle as the night sky. Around its rim are ancient glyphs. No one dares to speak. You feel them vibrating under your fingers. The scroll of the conjunction lies open beside you. To reunite the Ka that echoes offer clarity. Give the truth you fear to speak. You know what must be done. You close your eyes and speak the words you've kept buried since the mirror rite. I let her go, your voice cracks. I watched her walk into the mirror, and I didn't stop her. I was relieved, because it meant I didn't have to do it. I thought she was strong enough for both of us, but she was just a child. I should have taken her place. The mirror hums. Becket's face flickers. But it's not just her face anymore. Behind her you see shapes, others, dozens of faces, twisted, unfinished. Some are beautiful. Others are deformed, wide mouths, closed eyes, heads split open like pomegranates. All of them trapped, all of them watching. "They're the others," Kamwaset whispers. "Failed rites, lost Ka. Children who entered the mirror through time. Pieces of gods that were never whole." You begin to chant. Not a language. A tone. The sacred frequency written in the scroll's spiral glyphs. It's not meant to be sung. It's meant to be felt, each vibration shifting the mirror's resonance, pulling it toward clarity. Ipi pours goat's milk in a ring around the mirror's base. Kamwaset anoints the rim with lotus ash. You add the final element, your own blood. 3 drops smeared into the triangle glyph beneath the mirror's center. The mirror pulses, and then begins to move. Not physically. The surface shifts, undulating like black silk in water. Becket's face comes forward clearer now. She presses her hands to the inner surface. "So do you. Pull me," she whispers. before it notices. Your brow furrows before what notices. But it's too late. Something shifts behind her. A presence, massive, formless, crawling like oil through fog. A god memory. Incomplete. Unloved. Angry. Kanamek. It speaks without sound. Return is theft. What is offered cannot be reclaimed. The mirror freezes. Beckett is shoved backward. The faces behind her scream silently. And you see it. Not a body. A concept. 1,000 broken memories crushed into something almost divine. Kanamek isn't alive. It's made of pain. Made of failed worship. Kamwaset begins the second incantation, words from the Book of Caverns twisted and forbidden. Unbirth the echo, sever the ka. You follow. Each line stings your throat. Blood runs from your nose. Ipi vomits black bile. But the spell begins to rip open the mirror. Light pours from its center, white, bright wrong. It doesn't illuminate. It blinds. And from the rupture, Beckett falls through, screaming, alive, real. You catch her. She's shaking, soaked in a viscous fluid like black honey eyes wide and bleeding from the corners. But she's here. You sob. But then the mirror screams. Not a sound. A pressure. Like every bone in your body trying to crack at once. Kanemek doesn't want to let go. It follows her. Through. The surface splits, and a hand emerges, long, fingerless, covered in glyphs that move like insects under skin. It wraps around the rim, pulls. Kamwaset throws the final offering into the mirror, a shard of the cracked mirror from Karnak, the original gate. It acts like poison. The scream doubles. The hand retracts, burning. You seize the scroll and speak the last word, Menfet. Undoing, and the mirror shatters, not with glass but with light. A shockwave of silence. The mirror falls backward, black dust hissing from its core. And then, all is still. Beckett breathes. You hold her. Ipi collapses. Kamwaset is on one knee, his mouth bleeding, eyes wet. And the mirror gone. In its place is nothing. Not broken. Not melted. Just absence. Beckett whispers. It wasn't trying to kill me. You ask, then what she looks at you. It was trying to make me forget who I was, so it could wear my face. The night is windless as you leave the temple of Dendera. No stars. No moon. As if the sky itself has turned its face away from what just happened. Beckett walks between you and Kamwaset, her bare feet silent on the sandstone path. She clutches your hand tightly, not from fear, but to prove she's still here. Still her. Behind you, Ipi burns the remnants of the shattered mirror and recites the dissolution verse. The priests of Dendera remain locked inside their quarters, terrified. They heard the scream. They felt the tremor. But none of them dare to ask. The bark waiting at the riverbank looks small, insufficient, as if something like that should have changed the shape of the world. And yet here it is, the Nile, still flowing, still calm. You sail under silence, only the lapping of water, the creak of wood, the occasional whisper of a breeze that brushes your skin like fingers that don't belong. By dawn, Karnak returns to the horizon. You expected relief, but something is wrong. You don't see the temple first. You see smoke. Dark, thick plumes rising from the House of Life. No Kayamwaset breathes. No, no, no. You leap from the bark before it docks. Sprint barefoot over the stone causeway. Eepee's cries echo behind you. Beckett clutches your arm. The library is burning. Scrolls, centuries old, turn to ash. Ink stains the ground like blood. And in the center of it all, standing calmly amid the flames, is a figure. Unmoving. Watching. It wears a golden mask. Featureless. Smooth. Empty. You stop cold. Kayamwaset grabs your shoulder. It's not possible, he says. We close the gate. But Beckett steps forward, eyes wide with recognition. No, she whispers. That's not Kanemek. You stare. The masked figure lifts one hand slowly, deliberately, and places a finger where its mouth should be. Silence. Then it vanishes, gone in a blink. No footprints, no ripple, no trace. Only the mask left behind on the scorched altar. You approach it shaking. The surface is still warm. A symbol is etched inside the eye above the womb. Beckett breathes. It's another one. A shard. You realize something horrifying. Kanemek was not alone. Kanemek was just one shard. One fragment of the divine experiment started by Pharaoh Den, continued by Nitocris, Jer Jari, each ritual designed to rebuild something, piece by piece. You thought you sealed it, but sealing Kanemek may have awakened the others, and this one, the one that stood in the fire. It didn't need a body. It wore absence. You find Eepee kneeling by the ruins of the archive. She's cradling a scroll burned at the edges, but partially intact. She looks up, face soot-streaked eyes wet. I saved one, she says. Kayamwaset takes it carefully. He opens it, then blanches. It's not one of the ancient scrolls. It's new. Your handwriting. You stare. I didn't write anything new yet. But the scroll bears your name. And Beckett's. And a title, The Return of the Unborn God. Inside are dozens of passages you've never seen. Accounts of events that haven't happened. A map of tombs not yet uncovered. Names you don't recognize but fear. Beckett reads over your shoulder, and then says the last thing you expected. I think this is a prophecy. Kayamwaset nods slowly. The shards don't just exist now. They exist always. Kanemek came from the mirror. This one came from flame. Others will come from blood, from sound, from desire. You whisper the rituals weren't mistakes. They were clues. He finishes it to find the next piece. Your hands tremble. Then you turn to Beckett. Did you see them all, you ask? In the mirror, she nods. Some are asleep, others are searching. But one of them saw me. You pause. Which one? She looks at you, her voice barely audible. The one who eats names. You don't speak after that. Not for hours. Instead, you bury the mask. You scatter the ashes. And together you swear to do the one thing the Pharaohs never could stop it. All of it. The rebirth. The hunger. the return. You form a pact unwritten, unblessed, unbreakable. You and Kayamwaset will reconstruct the knowledge not to recreate but to contain. Beckett will train. She is no longer just a vessel, she is a warden. And Ipi, she watches over the ash. Every night you sleep with salt by your bed. The cracked mirror is sealed in a box of lead. And the scroll you didn't write but found in your own hand is locked in the coldest vault of the new archive which you've rebuilt stone by stone. You wait, because something is coming, and when it does, you will be ready. The new archive sits beneath the old house of life rebuilt in stone but insulated with salt bricks and lined with silver strips etched in reversed glyphs. You insisted on the design. Kayamwaset agreed. Ipi performed the grounding rituals herself. Above Karnak thrives again. Priests chant, tourists wander, offerings are made. But beneath the temple, beneath the illusion of peace, you, Kayamwaset Beket, and Ipi work like surgeons beside a dying god. You're not preserving life, you're stopping resurrection. Tonight you read again from the scroll you didn't write. The one found after the fire. The return of the unborn God. Its words shift depending on who reads it. You've tested this. Ipi sees memories of things long dead. Kayamwaset sees predictions about star alignments and blood rites. Beckett sees names. Too many names. Some carved into her dreams. One name keeps returning. Nasser Ha, the thirst between. You don't know if it's a shard, a god, a failed Ka, but its glyph appears in temples across Egypt, even ones supposedly untouched by corruption. Its symbol is a spiral made of tongues. Beckett found one carved into the wall of a public bathhouse near Luxor, another hidden in a grain silo. The most recent appeared last week, burned into the thigh of a dead ox, its eye sockets filled with honey. Whatever Nasser Ha is, it's moving. Kayamwaset believes it's tied to voice. A shard that travels not through mirrors or flame, but sound. If Kanamek was the hunger in reflection, he says then Nasser Ha is the hunger in silence broken. You shudder. And then you remember something Beckett once whispered when she returned from the mirror. Some shards are forgotten by gods. Others are remembered by humans. The worst are remembered by themselves. That night, you test the scroll again. You unroll it on the cold slab in the center of the archive, and you read it aloud. At the end of breath is the first syllable. At the center of prayer is the wound. At the moment of forgetting, the shard wakes. The air grows heavy. Ipi blows out every flame except one. The scroll curls, contracts, and bleeds. Not ink. Blood. You step back. The text has changed. New lines. Names you know. And one you don't, Neferu, guardian of the ninth mouth. He who speaks the silence into flesh. Your heart freezes. Kayamwaset gasps. He pulls out another scroll, the original Book of Gates. He flips to the ninth mouth. There it is, a gate not to the afterlife, but to the throat of something still alive. Beckett steps forward. The voice god, she says, it's trying to enter through speech. You whisper it uses people, their voices, their breath, their dreams. She nods. That's how it finds them. You begin sealing the scroll in wax, but it sings. A note clear and high like glass humming beneath pressure. Your ears bleed. Ipi collapses. Kayamwaset shouts in a language you don't know. You scream the severing name Jothem. The scroll goes silent. You bury it beneath the salt vault. It takes all night to recover, but the message is clear. The shards are waking, not just through relics, mirrors, or rituals, but through people and language. That means every poem, every chant, every whisper in the wrong pattern could bring something back. The archive isn't just for storage now. It's a quarantine. Beckett begins designing new Ward's phrases that fold into themselves writing that devours its own meaning. She's only 14, but sometimes when she speaks, you hear older voices, layers of her. "You okay?" you ask her one morning. She shrugs. Some days I'm Beckett. Other days, I'm remembering. Kmwaset brings news from Philae, another mirror, but cracked from the inside. The priest who found it died with his tongue turned backward. No writing found, just a phrase burned into the floorboards. What I speak, I become. What I name, I serve. You don't sleep after that. You begin designing a new scroll, one only you will write. You name it the Lexicon of Unsafe Speech, a dictionary of words, sounds, and names that could awaken. Because now you know some shards don't need ritual. They only need to be heard. And one night as you walk the corridor past the salt vault, you hear a voice in the dark. Familiar. A whisper. Low, tired. Your own. It says the ninth mouth is already open. You turn, but no one is there. Your name is spoken in your sleep now. You never hear it at first. But when you wake, heart-pounding, body damp with sweat, you remember the shape of it on the air. The syllables coil in your ears like eels, gentle and wet. Sometimes it's Beckett's voice whispering it. Sometimes your mother's, though you can no longer remember her face. Sometimes it's your own. You're not dreaming anymore. You're remembering something that hasn't happened. And every morning when you look into your reflection, your lips are slightly parted, as if you were just finishing a word. The lexicon of unsafe speech is growing. Kmwaset helps you cross-reference ancient names with modern sounds. IP constructs elaborate traps using folded papyri that collapse if a forbidden glyph is written inside. Beckett has learned to speak in two voices, one her own, one shaped by the echo of the mirror. You test each word with salt, blood, milk. 3 more scrolls melt in your hands before you develop a system. Then one afternoon, a courier arrives at the archive with a sealed bundle from Elephantine Island. It's unsigned. Just one scroll inside. No title. But as soon as you touch it, your ears pop. The scroll reads itself, not aloud, inside your head. It whispers, "You who named the shard shall birth its silence." You drop it. The scroll cries out as it hits the stone. A high-pitched infant wail. Beckett runs to you, eyes wild. Did it say your name? You nod. I think it is my name now. And that's when the final pattern emerges. Not from a scroll, not from a tomb, but from your own body. The glyph appears under your skin. Just one. Small, glowing faintly beneath the flesh of your forearm. The 9th mouth. Kmwaset stares at it. You're being marked. Ipi looks pale, or inhabited. Beckett disagrees. She kneels beside you, places her palm over the glyph. then whispers, "You're not a vessel. You're the seal." You blink the seal. The others tried to birth the god. You're going to hold it. You laugh. It sounds hollow. Why me? She looks sad. Because you're the only one who's ever walked into the fire and come out without wanting to become it. The room falls quiet. Later that night, Kaimwaset brings out the final fragment of the scroll from Dendera, the one no one dared translate. You do it anyway. The lines are fractured, ancient, stitched from Sumerian Coptic and something older. But the meaning is clear. The final shard is not summoned. It is formed. When memory, word, and sacrifice align, the unborn becomes the bound. Beckett nods. We can trap it. All of it. Every shard. Epi frowns. But we'll need the place. Kaimwaset unrolls a long-forgotten map. You recognize the shape instantly. The Great Pyramid of Khufu. Beneath it, a hidden chamber never completed, known only in myth, called the Vault of Silence. Beckett reads the name and shivers. That's where the first shard left. That's where it has to return. You begin preparations. The vault must be sealed with flesh, blood, voice, and name. You will give yours. Kaimwaset will offer his memories. Epi will recite the binding of the fifth gate. And Beckett, she will stay behind. You protest, but she smiles sadly. This is how it ends. Someone must remain, not as a victim, as a witness. The bark sails under moonless sky. 4 figures bound by blood salt and silence. As you approach Giza, you don't see the pyramids right away. You see shadows circling above them, birds made of glyphs, ink bleeding into air. And at the center of the plateau, the mouth of a tunnel you've never seen, not carved, opened. You descend. The Vault of Silence is not what you expected. No gold. No inscriptions, just white stone, smooth, cold, so quiet it hurts. You place the scrolls, you light the final lamp. Kaimwaset sings the song of the seventh eye. Epi drinks the memory draft and begins forgetting her own name. And you step into the circle. Beckett kisses your forehead. Then speaks your name, Neferu, and the vault responds. The floor glows. The glyph in your skin burns. And in the air before you, the shards arrive. All of them. Kanemek, Neser-Ha, the child of Nitocris, the twin of Jer, the mirror-born, the voice god, the flame thing, and one more. New, shaped like you. It smiles and speaks. Your voice. You are the seal. But I am the truth. You don't run. You close your eyes and whisper the one name the scrolls never dared record, Ye-Temem. I bind you with my forgetting. And the chamber explodes in lightless silence. There is no sound, no heat, no shadow, no breath. Only the sensation of weight, not on your body, but inside your memory, as though everything you've ever known, ever feared, ever been, is being stretched thin over an altar shaped like forgetting. This is the Vault of Silence, and in its center stands you. Or rather, what remains of you. You remember stepping into the circle. You remember Beckett's hand slipping from yours. You remember saying the name Ye-Temem, a word so ancient it had no echo. And then this, a space beyond gods. You open your eyes and see nothing, and then everything. Shards floating like stars, the mirror's hunger, the serpent's thirst, the wombs carved into walls, the stitched mouths, the golden mask. They form a ring around you, all pulsing with light and noise, but trapped now, unable to move inward. They scream, but you hear nothing, because you are the vault, the seal, the final memory they cannot pass through. Your body, your name, your breath sacrificed not in death, but in containment. They wanted to be gods again, but you've rewritten the ritual. Now they will be witnessed, not worshipped. And behind the veil, somewhere far above or perhaps within, you feel them. Becket, Kayamwaset, Ipi, alive, changed. You see flashes Becket walking the Nile shore, with salt in her hair, teaching children the silent names of safety. Kayamwaset, rebuilding the archives in clay, his hands cracked and ink-stained, copying only the safe stories. Ipi, silent now, but smiling, her memory fading gently like dawn. And you're not gone. You're not dead. You're written in every unspoken word, every scroll sealed in wax, every whisper left unsaid. You are what holds the gods in check. You are the scar where power once tried to enter the world again and failed. And then you hear a sound, a heartbeat. Not yours, hers, Becket. You feel her hand ghost-like press against the inner wall of the vault. She's older now, but she remembers. You smile, because that's all that matters. She remembers. And as long as someone remembers who you were, the shards stay sealed, the rituals stay broken, and Egypt sleeps, safe. Finally, you made it. All the way through the shadowed corridors of Karnak, the mirror writes the silent gods in the vault of silence. And somehow you came out the other side, perhaps a little shaken, but also a little braver. We rarely think of history as dangerous. We imagine ancient Egypt as gold and sand statues and pyramids. But stories, real stories, hide in the cracks. Behind every ritual, every symbol, every god etched in stone, there was a question no one dared ask. What if this went too far? And sometimes it did. Tonight you wandered through the imagined memories of those who tried to bind the divine, bend power to their will and pull eternity into flesh. But instead of gods, they found echoes, fragments of desire, fear, hunger, unborn things, forgotten things, and they left behind traces, rituals, names, scrolls that hum in the dark. And through it all, one voice, yours, held steady. You became a guardian of silence, a scribe of warnings, a seal over the unspoken. Let that remind you of something simple and true. Even in the face of unimaginable darkness, knowledge can be a weapon, and remembrance a shield. So now close your eyes. Breathe out slowly. Let the ink dry. Let the scrolls rest. And if you hear your name whispered in the quiet tonight, it's just memory passing through. It can't touch you anymore. You're safe. You're home. You're still you.